No, you're gonna do roll call, right? No, you already have this, right?
Okay,
Yeah,
we'll call this meeting to order. Can everyone hear? I guess raise your hand, or I guess if you're on, just on the phone, just answer please. Joe, can you hear? Joe Maldonado? Good, good, gotcha. Okay, so we'll do a roll call. John Villarreal here, Brett Dickey, on his way. Cesar Garay. Cesar, I see you there. Can you answer here? Can you unmute?
Oh, here. I couldn't unmute it. Here we go.
Thank you. Arturo Dominguez. Here. Alma Acevedo.
she's at another meeting nearby. Not here.
Mayra Hernandez. Mayra Hernandez, are you here?
She said she was gonna do online, but I guess not.
Rafael Dueñas. Here. Joe Maldonado, already said here.
Present.
Noski. Okay, we have a form. Next item is the approval of the minutes. Have you all had a chance to review the minutes? One thing that I did tell Techno is that there's a lot of stuff that
It's
I
cleaned
know
up.
it's more of a dictated. I don't know if y'all have gone through the minutes, but it's more dictated. So there's some misspelled words that need to be cleared up. Have you all had a chance to go through the minutes? Things that I would like to, just to change on the minutes, a lot of grammar stuff, like
Yep.
in the second line there, I would put 2020. Then instead of filled, it's filed for unemployment.
Sure.
Then Laredo hasn't had, then on the third line, we have not been able to file.
Well, I'll tell you what, Mr. Chairman, what if we, give Val a chance to go through it and do all the revisements and get it back to you,
Okay.
corrected? That okay?
Let's do that, and maybe we can go to what do you think, we go to a poll or it's minutes, or should we approve next?
So,
next meeting?
I mean, there are mistakes, obviously grammatical mistakes here, but I think if everyone, can let you know whether the
As far
context
as
is
the
fine,
substance,
yeah, the
yeah.
substance is fine, we can okay then. With the amendment that we'll make all the corrections.
Okay. So is there so do I hear a motion, I guess, for us to, I guess, bring back the minutes for our next meeting? Bring it back for the next. Second by Arturo, all those in favor, by raising their hand. Aye. Those, are there any nays? Any nays? Okay, motion passes. Next item on the agenda is our discussion. Our first item is discussion of economic incentives proposed for produce, cold storage company, and also because produce, cold storage sector as target industry moving forward. Our economic development director, Teco.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate it. And I'll be glad to take questions after, you know, anybody who wants to ask here or online. Last week I sent a note to everyone kind of outlining what the incentives for that cold storage / produce company were. Master Nardi, which also goes by the name of Sunset. I don't know if you guys can see me here. Okay, there you go. And so what we did is we probably worked the last 3 months or so on that agreement, negotiating everything from the wages for their different types of workers, to what exactly was going to be given a tax rebate for, what was allowable under state and municipal, state law and municipal ordinances. There's a lot of back and forth involved. Like, we had several phone conferences, but we'll do a document. They have to look at it. Their legal looks at it, sends it back to us, our legal, and that kind of thing. And so, so we had to negotiate all those terms out. And this company is already here. They've got 100 employees. They're going to move from where they're at right now up by the Columbia Bridge to closer to the World Trade Bridge into the old Costco facility that's on El Gato Road. So they're going to take over that at the partner. They're going to lease that facility from the owner, and the owner is going to sink about $10 million into repairing that facility and also refrigerating up to 70% of the building. Right now, it's only 30% refrigeration. Now they're going to go to 70, and the rest of the offices like that. And so, anyway, we went through all that. Got the city managers, to look at it. Legal got it before the council. And this is a project that was brought to us by the Laredo EDC, which is a good thing. They're doing their work. And I appreciate them, going out there, knocking on doors and working with this company to finally get them in. There's one thing that we didn't discuss at the meeting, and it's kind of public knowledge, but we're small groupers, I don't want to share it. That is that company has operations, Sunset, they're from Canada. They have operations throughout the United States, California, Texas, Michigan, the big kind of produce states, right? And so, but they have a big operation in Michigan where they take tomatoes, right? And it's tomatoes from Mexico. HEB is one of their biggest clients. And so their personnel were telling me that right now they run those tomatoes all the way up to Michigan, and then they bring them back to San Antonio for HEB. So they said, if we can work with you maybe in the near future after we get this facility open, we're already discussing amongst ourselves of trying to bring that facility in Michigan to Laredo.
Are those Mexican tomatoes that go to Michigan that come back? Right.
So there would be more jobs around the same level of pay, not super highly skilled, but around, $12, $13, and $14 an hour. And it could be several hundred more. So we'll work with them. We'll listen to them, see if they still want to do that, and then we'll definitely, I'll let y'all know how that goes.
Geographically, distribution, control, A1 rate. For everybody, that's one of our.
Yeah.
Why go all the way to Minneapolis for every hour?
Yeah, especially the HEB because. Yeah, Julie, go ahead, man.
We have a working how that ties into I'm sure there are forms of measurement here. Maybe fair. I think this is good. I just would like to see a structure that if we're getting these incentives, this is not fitting our current economic development position, cluster analysis on I'm sure people look at a lot of things and say this financially makes sense, but are we incentivizing a cluster that is possibly going to grow and allow other people? So, since you're getting at this, you have the option that shows that it is
Working on it, man. Working on it, and that's part of
creating, right?
Well, yeah, no, right. So what he's talking about is more of a strategic document, and that's what we kind of went through this last exercise with that select committee, and the city council said, okay, we want y'all to go forward to study manufacturing and clusters to see what we're able to do, how we can do it, what we're gonna do. So the answer is, I don't have a document, but I'm very cognizant of that. I think people in the community have let me know what, in their work, in their thoughts, what we should be doing, and I think they're right. And we do need to figure out what our strategy is for clusters. Financially, Julian, I did put a tax sheet together to make sure that this deal was not upside down, right? At least for the numbers. We come out ahead. One thing I forgot to mention in here is that when we work the numbers on this deal, okay, they're creating 140 new jobs. All right, that's great. They're going to, their landowner or the building owner is going to see $10 million into the building. So that's going to create value in terms of ad valorem taxes. The value of that building is going to increase. They're already paying like $120,000 in taxes for that building. It's okay. John was on the phone with Frank's loss. So that building, even empty, is already generating ad valorem. Obviously, but it's going to, after the $10 million of renovations, be more valuable. So once we included that against what tax rebates we're giving them, and the tax assessments that we can use for rebates cannot be on the property itself. It has to be just on their equipment, right? So their business personal property is what we're going to do with our tax rate. That ends up to be about 25 grand a year if it's their minimal investment. They claim that they're going to have at least $4 million worth of equipment in the facility, or up to 13 million. If they went with just 4 million, it would be $25,000. So that's what we worked off of, and those numbers make sense. So I hope I answered your question, and we're still working on the document you're referring to.
The reason I bring it up is, as I voting for standardization, that is more on the top. And if we don't have that document, I'm starting to think that you're going to get how are we really deciding how to incentivize and what our grades are going to look like? We don't know that. And most of these people, should never be upside down unless that target cluster that we're going after shows the most return.
Right.
Hey, look, no one can hear what's going on that side of the room.
Okay.
All right, you might want to repeat,
Okay, I'll repeat a little bit more.
If you are gonna speak, I don't know if we can get closer, but that they said even you sound a little muffled.
Well, I'm right here.
No, well, it's not there too.
Okay. Well, sorry about that, everyone. Julie and I are having a good discussion here about incentives and which way we should be. So let me just say that just preliminarily, we have identified kind of as a low-hanging fruit cluster without the formal study as the produce and cold storage industry, because number one is they provide a huge capital investment, usually with their buildings. Mission Produce building facility is $50 million. U.S. Cold Storage was 35 to 40 million. And then this one is smaller, it's at 10 million. And the jobs are decent, and we're pushing their wages to be higher. We've been at $13.50 with the last two firms. That's the lowest wage that they can pay. So we're pretty happy about that. I think we're going to continue until we finish the clusters report, Julian, in a formal way. We'll continue to look at cold storage for right now. But you're right. Once we get a more formal study, which we're going to start very soon, and we're pushed by the city council to do that, we'll have a better idea on how we can move forward with what industries we're actually going to go after. But
historically,
No, well, they want us to try to call it in and just meet here, so we
that's
can
fine.
hear everybody here. We're gonna go on a quick.
Hold on, we'll do this a quick way. Sorry, John.
Historically, produce has been in the valley. Historically, produce has gone through the valley. So the majority, so I guess we got mission produce, mission. And they go to red for.
Yes.
We only went to a, Kings right now, so
I know.
we'll be trying to.
My phone's over.
Can y'all hear me now? Can everyone hear?
Please unmute your mic and let us know, please.
Can y'all hear me?
Joe Maldonado, I can hear.
I can hear.
Okay, great. Okay, sorry about that. Mr. Chairman, you were saying something about produce in the valley?
Yeah, produce historically has, I mean, it's still a large part, and I don't know what percentage goes to the valley, and what percentage goes through here, but I know getting Mission, and then of course, the expansion of this entity will contribute to getting more of that piece of business.
Mr. Chairman, last year, the FAR Bridge, which is the primary commercial bridge in Hidalgo County only has really one commercial bridge, and that's FAR. And they did about $5.8 billion in produce, right? We did $4 billion without really having a produce industry centered here. So they like to, FAR likes to go around saying that they move 60 to 70% of all produce that comes into the U.S. from Mexico. And that's just not true, because if we're doing $4 billion and Nogales is doing another $2 billion and California is doing another $1 billion, then how can they be doing 60%, 70%? They may have at one point, but produce shipments mean a lot more to FAR because they only move about $35 billion altogether. We moved $232 billion, at least last year we did. And so we do, almost 10 times as much traffic as the FAR Bridge does. But produce is about 40% of their traffic, so it means a lot.
We were limited with the U.S. cold storage at the offer. Like 8 storage, frozen. And then we started getting cold storage, started for a lot of small private.
Yeah, there's a lot of small ones.
Started doing cold, well, not frozen, but
Refrigerators.
and they could store it, and then so it started picking up. But we do have to bag the first time.
Yeah.
Are here, that's why we have a lot of money, but we don't set it out.
No, I did a quick survey of how many we have, and but just looking at maps and not going to see myself, and we have about 14 or 15 cold storage places of a decent size in Laredo. 20,000, 25,000 square feet. Yeah, U.S. Cold and them, they're the big ones. They're monsters, but there's a ton of small ones. But Any other questions on that? We're doing the signatures, we're executing the agreement right now, and then, it should be done.
What are the actual, incentives that are being offered?
Good question.
You've got a landlord, and then you've got.
So the landlord isn't involved at all. He's gonna pass on his costs to the lessee, right? And so, the tax rebates, that are in this agreement are for, Master Nardi.
I'm sorry, did somebody want to say something? From the,
They still can't hear. They want to see if everyone can call the number. They can hear a little bit here, but over there they can't hear anything.
yeah, what we might have to do when y'all are, maybe come over here.
I'll try to repeat the question.
Or repeat the question.
Yeah, I'll repeat the question.
Sorry, everyone.
Sorry about that, guys. So the question is, what were the actual rebates or incentives involved? And there's really just one incentive, economic incentive that we applied to the company, and that is they would get their taxes rebated from the city. That would be whatever taxes are assessed on their business, personal property, their equipment, and so forth that they have inside the facility.
So essentially, probably they had a triple net lease where the lease he was gonna pay the taxes anyway, so it'll be a direct benefit to them.
Right, and so that's the main thing, and it's a performance agreement. If they don't meet their job numbers, and if their valuations aren't what they said they were gonna be, then they don't get their taxes rebated.
So what will this be proposed council?
It was in this last meeting. It was approved by the council. The company was really pressing to get it done as fast as they could because they wanted to move in May, or not move in, but start repairing their facility in May, and we just couldn't do the agreement that fast. So they were in a rush, so we got it before council. We still got it reviewed by all the legal parties, but
Who works on this agreement?
myself, the legal staff, Laredo EDC a little bit, and then Master Nardi and their legal staff.
I guess one of the things that we hear, and I know we have people here from the international trade community, but we got the automotive, that has been hurt by the COVID-19, but like the produce stuff, that's actually helped, right? I mean, that's one thing that has probably increased as far as trade. Can you all confirm that, or do y'all, any comments on that?
I can share.
You might want to just maybe hear. Can you all hear everybody?
It's whatever went down, it kept steady.
As far as
Volume from import, not export, but import. But this is yesterday. You just. We're almost there. We're almost back to normal.
U.S. Cold Storage told me about 2 months ago that they had to ramp up their hiring, and then they gave everybody a raise so they wouldn't take off to go to another company that was also hiring because they wanted to keep their folks around. So they said that was because of just more fruit and vegetables have been moving during this pandemic, than they had estimated. So,
Any comments from you all that are calling in? Alma, Cesar? Joe? Maida? I see you're here. Any comments from you all? Can you all hear us?
Yes, no comment from me, and Alma chatted that she's got no comments.
okay, thank you. We can take this up probably next meeting or meeting after that. There's some of you, and I know Rafa and I have talked about it, about bringing these deals to the committee before that they're done. I hesitate to do that because there's a lot of confidentiality in those agreements, and these are public meetings, and I'd rather not negotiate those contracts by committee.
I think,
An answer to that is we can talk.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got it here. Okay. Sorry.
And after that is we can talk about, or you can present to the committee a type of industry that you're bringing, and then if we had that cluster analysis and had a thing we want to really go for, then I think we can align those and the committee say, you know what, that's actually aligning with the current plan. We don't need to have a company name. We just need to know what industry we're incentivizing and how it fits in with our current economic development plan. And then I think if the entire committee agrees, that's a way of at least having a pulse on what we're really doing for economic development and how we're targeting industries.
No names.
And we don't have to have names. We just need to know the industry at least.
Okay. Well, let me take, Julian, you bring up a good point. Let me take that under consideration because maybe we can do that.
It could be a simple chart, because it is going for it.
Okay.
And
I got you.
I think that's like they're is it hitting marks when it comes to our clusters, and it's creating new clusters in our clusters. And that's what we really need.
And that's why I think this, the produce, like we mentioned, and saw what the valley's doing, but it's a new sector, right?
We're gonna whip the valley, man. We're gonna whip the valley. They're already mad at me, so that's fine. That's fine. You know.
Is there any other comments?
They are.
On number one, on the cold storage? Okay, we'll move on to number two, report on Laredo economy to include unemployment, bridge, sales tax, and other further economic data by our economic development director, Mr. Teco Garcia.
I apologize for not having a written report ready for this number two. There's nothing confidential here. But I can tell you that the last 2 months on our bridges, we were down almost 40% on commercial traffic, 39 and 38. The last, 2 months, April and May, close to 40% on commercial traffic numbers, right? And then, of course, this month is too early to tell, but just through 3 or 4 days of this month, the numbers are way up. And the last week of May, the numbers were up also. I mean, being better. We're still down. However, for the year, commercial traffic, southbound traffic is only down 6%. So if things get better from here on out, we've kind of been able to dodge a bullet there. Because if we would have had 1 more month of really bad, then it could have been bad. Yes.
What percentage, do we know the percentage
what percentage of the commercial traffic is actually linked to automotive?
Right. Well, generally about 50%.
Yeah.
You know, so
in the United States, 60% of our inputs are out.
yeah.
Rarely not.
Yeah. The other thing, if you look at our charts, I mean, we did about $1 billion of trade with China last year, right? And we did like 500 million with France. And those are big numbers, right? But 98% of our trade is still with Mexico. So But that's the best number I have. It's about 50%, give or take 60 on the import side.
So those on the automotive sector, maybe Alma, Arturo, Rafael. So of the factories that were closed, how many have opened?
I think
How many are still, what percentage?
almost all of them, the last reports I read, and that was only yesterday, was that every major auto manufacturing plant in Mexico is now open. I don't know about all the parts manufacturing plants. There's more than 1,500 of them. But Audi's open, BMW's open, GM's open, Volkswagen's open. All those are open in central Mexico.
Okay, now they're open, but then at what capacity?
Well, that's a good question. And then the question is, what kind of demand do they have? Are they still filling past orders, or are they going to fill new orders from the U.S.? Because right now, our sales are down the tubes. So, and it's going to take them, even if they were told they can ramp up fully, I mean, they got to get people back, you know? So anyway, going back to the bridge numbers, pedestrians in April and May also were down almost 80%, right? That's obvious because of the restrictions that are put in place. This month has shown us little sign of getting better, or the end of May also. Passenger vehicles are down about 50 to 60%.
But the bridge is still, as far as
Until June 30th, the federal restrictions are still in place for non-essential travel. So that means all the daily shoppers, maids, yard people, et cetera, they're not, you know, most of them are not crossing.
and then there's a lot of restrictions going into Mexico too.
Also, I mean, just for common sense, like, you know, Nuevo Laredo is going to their kind of peak, if you will, in terms of COVID-19. We've hit ours, supposedly. They're just beginning to hit theirs. I was in a briefing this morning with Mayor Rivas, and they're on full lockdown mode. So,
Well, they already exceeded the number of deaths. We're at 19, they're at 22. Last numbers,
with very little testing. And
yeah, they're probably about, 10, 15% of what we said.
or you can just say what Trump says, hey, if we don't test, we don't have cases.
That's what it is.
What they're doing is coming from Sierra, picking it up and going all the way back around.
Wow. So, then going back to the bridge numbers, you know, vehicles, I covered commercial, I covered passenger vehicles and pedestrians, and that's obviously the vast majority of the traffic there. Good signs, but I think the biggest deal is our commercial traffic, overall for the fiscal year, is down just 7%. Sales tax, the state always runs 2 months behind, so we only have March's figures. In March, we were down 5.7% over last year. So, you know, you can imagine what April and May will be like. You know, probably easily double-digit losses on sales tax, and that's part of the revenue that drives the city. Any other numbers that you guys want to know that I don't have right here, I can get for you, but we're from the airport for several weeks, we were just running one flight a day, one American flight. Now we're back to, I think, 3. And United, I don't think it's back yet. May have changed since yesterday, but since early this week, there's been no United. Allegiant has announced they're going to come back, but they're not back yet. And then lastly, the flight to Mexico City, we'll have to start addressing that maybe next month or so to see if we can get that back on track. Because we were supposed to have it, and then, yeah.
So if 50% of our trade is linked to automotive,
Yes, sir. I think it's safe to say people are going to still need to continue to eat, so for produce can most likely continue, possibly growth. Has there been any figures on future automotive demand? Because I know that's at least what I see, you know, all the hot boxes on TV discussing like what is the future of GM, you know, Ford. Is there going to be this renewed demand for cars, especially when we hit peak default rate amongst automotive loans?
See, we don't feel as though the comeback, if there is gonna be one for auto, it's gonna take a long time, if it does. But sales are not there now. For auto. So the demand will be there. They're not gonna order new cars. The companies are. So we have to watch that one closely. That is our bread and butter. So we have to watch that closely and yeah, you know, and and our friends at United, or Union Pacific and Casey Southern, they move a lot of the new cars that are finished. You know, we move parts down there, the cars get assembled, they get put on rail, and they get moved up, and they, and that's part of their, core revenue as well, moving vehicles. So those are the numbers we have from there. By the way, obviously our hotel motel is way down. I think we're down almost 40% on rooms, but we weren't as bad off as Brownsville, McAllen, Corpus Christi, and San Antonio. We don't have a huge number of hotels, but at least we took a little silver lining from that. And so that's the numbers I have for the local economy.
Like for San Antonio, that they depend a lot.
No. Imagine McAllen. McAllen has probably 2 or 3 times the number of hotel rooms because they depend so much on Mexican national shopping there, right?
I mean, I know of one hotel that I finance. I mean, they're at 11% occupancy.
Yeah.
They were up like at 60, they're down to like 11%.
Yeah, it'll be.
Yeah, but I've also heard from some of the dealers, or I've talked to people that have spoken to some of the local dealers, and their sales are good, accordingly. So I don't know, because there's a lot of incentives to purchase. I mean, we're also looking at our economy. We have you had mentioned 80% are essential workers, so you're right.
Well, yeah, they're something of the problem in economic trade is big fish to big fish. They have resources, and everything is growing out. Ocean streets are now, everything is so easy for big corporations.
But some of them, I mean, they do hurt. I mean, some of the big corporations, they do hurt. Here it's the essential. We've got the people in government, school districts, county.
Yeah, even closer to 80%. Yeah, that's what they were deemed by the federal government. So we were lucky in that sense. I mean, all the school employees still got paid. Got all the government. No, that was a very dumb formula that came out of Washington on how to pay cities. The big cities above 500,000 got their money directly, and $176 per capita funding formula, and then cities below 500,000 got $55 per person. I don't know if you're like at 485,000 people. That's how they did it, man. And we and a bunch of cities.
Is that our Metroplex, or because you've got Metroplex and you got Salt City?
Okay, so who has an hour? But no, but I can explain this. Okay, so just to deviate a little bit from our conversation, Julian asked a really good CARES Act funding question. And I don't know if y'all can hear me or not, but here's how the CARES Act funding worked. And this is an economic development issue, right? So the federal government sent out money from the CARES Act to city and counties around the country and other entities. But the cities and counties were divided this way for funding. If your population, if you were a city or a county, if your population was above 500,000, you got $176 per person, and the money was put in your account overnight. If your population is below 500,000, your money was sent to the state, and then the state gives you 20% of it and says, hey, spend this first at $55 a person, so less than 1/3 of what the big cities were getting. hey, here's your 20% of your money that you're supposed to get. Once you finish spending that money on COVID-related expenses, then we'll give you the rest of it on a reimbursement, show me your receipt way. And the big cities don't, and counties don't have to do that. And so that's, we have said that, told the governor and the feds that that's completely unfair. Cuellar has filed legislation for the next so-called CARES funding thing that those rules would not be in place. It's too late to change them now. And so therefore, we ended up getting, based on our population, about $15 million. And we got $3 million up front, the 20%. The county of Webb got how much? $35,000. Yeah. And meanwhile, Hidalgo County got hundreds of millions of dollars, and then they have to give it to the cities in their county, and they don't have to go through the reporting processes that we do. But Laredo, Lubbock, Amarillo, Beaumont, Corpus Christi, Tyler, Texarkana, Wichita Falls, Waco, Temple, we're all in that same boat of having to do this weird dance with the state for our money. And the big cities don't. San Antonio got $191 million. And everyone has to spend it by December 30th.
And what's that percentage of their budget, the 191?
Probably a small piece of it, but you can only use it on COVID-related expenses. You can't use it for budgeted items. Like we can't use it to pay the custodians at City Hall or pay me. If we took on unbudgeted expenses like policing parks, and there was a lot of overtime for police, extra calls for fire, buying masks and gowns and extra tests for the health department, we can pay all that with that money, right? We can even offer rental assistance, mortgage assistance, or economic assistance to small businesses, right? Anything that we didn't budget for, we can use the money for it. But it's hard to use up that money that you get because there's so many stipulations on it.
So we have a plan.
Yes, yeah.
Or 70% of our economy related to small business.
No, we said essential. Yeah.
Essential work.
Oh, sorry. Myra, go ahead.
Is it a mute?
Yeah, if you're on and you can hear,
Oh,
you can unmute and the floor is yours.
Unmute my.
I was making several attempts to unmute myself. So it's Alma. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sorry. I was just gonna actually see if I could get off the phone, not asking for permission, but basically, I'm not really tracking everything that's going on over there, and it seems just to be an informative discussion. And I don't know if there's anything really actionable that needs to happen right now. So I was just gonna say that maybe I'll make a better effort, hopefully for the next meeting, to be there in person. I didn't think this would be as difficult remotely. So I was just gonna bow out as gracefully as I possibly can at the moment, unless there's something more actionable you guys want to bring up before the call ends.
Well, we were just discussing some of the statistics on the report on the rate of economy. I guess got carried away, but is there, Mayra, did you have anything, or was it was on?
No, it was just me. I was trying to unmute just for that. I think that's maybe moving forward, if there's certain things, questions involving statistics on percentages and numbers and budgets and things like that. I mean, maybe it's just since all the social distancing and lockdown started and quarantines, I've just felt a little bit more information overload. And I'm getting a little antsy for more of an action item thing. I think a lot of what's discussed at these meetings are things that we could Google, or we could, very gladly share any articles or resources or information if these are questions that are going to come up. But to have these discussions, they're just discussions. And I just, I think it's just because I'm having a harder time tracking everything that's being discussed because of the audio feed, that's probably why a little bit of source of maybe let's call it a frustration of mine at the moment, just because I'm not fully able to engage and participate through the WebEx. But like I asked earlier, if there is an actual action item or anything that we need to vote on.
And that's why it's important that, like we mentioned, for you all to bring up agenda items at least, before the Friday of I guess, the week prior. So we could have items that we could have possible action. We do have some of them in here. We did get carried away with some of the economic numbers. Of course, these numbers have changed drastically. I mean, it's not like the numbers, you have the same trends. It's a very different environment right now. So we're just trying to compare how much it's being impacted.
Okay, so for the interest of time, Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that we would go to number 3 if you want to do that, and that's an actionable item. So people can, if they need to leave at 1, they can do that, but if you want to move on to that one, we can do that.
Okay, item number 3. Anything else on item number 2? Those that are calling in? Okay, we'll move on to item number 3, discussion and possible action on the progress of Laredo's new Texas Chapter 380 guidelines.
Okay, so everyone was emailed a copy of the progress that's been made so far in the 380 agreement, and then those of us here, there's a copy, you should have a copy in front of you, I believe, no? Okay. No? What do you need? I thought I had the 380 for everyone to look at. John has one. No? Or those? No.
I'm sorry, I'm checking my emails right now. I don't think I have that. I don't remember seeing that. I'll check further.
Valerie sent those to everyone before the meeting started.
The 380?
Well, it's just a draft of the 380. I don't want to give anybody
the chocolate? No, we didn't get it.
It's just a draft of the 380.
Yeah, no, I didn't. The actual.
So before the pandemic hit, the chairman and Julian sat down with me and also emailed me some recommendations on some other 380s from around the state as part of the subcommittee that they were working on to give me some direction on developing a 380. And so I have done that. I'm looking in San Antonio. I've looked at El Paso, McAllen, Corpus Christi, and Fort Worth. And then I looked at our own 312 policy, which is similar, to develop this 380 guideline. So this guideline, I should have finished for the committee to review or at least discuss next meeting. And at that meeting, we can, take the full hour if the chairman wants to do that. And you have my word that you'll get it way beforehand. And then we will be able to discuss that 380, and then you guys can make recommendations to me on what y'all think needs to be fixed or what you're not pleased with or what else can be put in it. Meaningful edits to the document, and then I can make those, either send it around to you via email or wait to the next meeting for you guys to approve that document. Then what we would do is we would get it to our legal staff for them to review it to see if it's legal, if it passes muster there. And at that point, then we could make a recommendation to the council and go, hey, this is the EDAC's recommendation to the council for you guys to adopt these as the guidelines for 380s going forward.
Now, I know that we went through, I know Julian and I went through some of the previous ones. I guess we still have that subcommittee, right? So including Joe Maldonado. So I guess if you finish, you're halfway through the draft. If you finish the draft, then we can look at it.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
The legal. Go ahead, I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
So I do think that we actually should move forward with finalizing that document. We actually have our that is what we put into the structure of the chapter and how we're going to implement
mean, are we gonna wait till all that's done? Because there's also, right, because there's clusters, and then there's manufacturing, and then there's healthcare, like, all these are separate, efforts. So just keep that in mind, I guess, you know?
Okay, so we have the comprehensive plan already, right? We have our comprehensive. So I guess this future strategic incentive, is it part of that plan, or is it something that?
Okay, can I give you an out on that? I'm not rushing to do the 380, but we can probably do it in the next several months, 3 months or whatever, often we meet, is the 380, can always be amended. And in fact, it should be amended, because in 4 years from now, if our direction changes to more, you know, sustainable or whatever, you know, then we need to change it, man. Consider that. I'm hearing what you're saying. You're right, there should be input from that economic development planning into the 380. At the same time, the 380 needs to be flexible to adjustments. Yeah. In fact, the city council said to form a separate entity to do some of these studies, right? But I'd rather have the EDAC, you know, play a big part in that. So when we form these committees to study manufacturing and healthcare, I would like to ask you guys to participate.
Or we can look at.
My study was actually approved, already did, that presentation that you did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is supposed to expand.
Correct.
Which I think is what I'm, it's not just your electrical wedding, like, we're already on track, I'm not saying that we're not.
Okay, so you said that there's a group that's putting this.
I think that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, he's right. Look, we haven't reassembled to start the cluster yet. We just finished that report.
And that's where I didn't know that, I guess it was another group.
Yeah, we finished the report, submitted to the council accepted it and said, move forward with the recommendations that the committee has said. So that was on Monday. So we haven't reassembled or haven't set a date to reassemble when we're gonna start doing the cluster, talks.
Could we not include that or that?
Yes, we can, yes. Yeah.
Because wasn't there also like a COVID-19 economic group? Is that the same one, or is that? You know, there's all these other groups that I guess.
We put two groups together for the city council that they asked us to do. One to look at small business. Arnold headed that up, and we did that. Had soundboard roundtable meetings with them. Two, and Rocco was in one of those, I think, also. Yeah, the first meeting. Then we did another group that looked at the overall economy and how can we move forward, not short term, longer term. And that's where the clusters and all those things came to be. There's 6 recommendations that the city council approved, wanted us to move forward on. And so it's my job to help integrate this committee into those recommendations.
Right, and see, I guess that's sort of like overlapping to what we do with, you know, but I know the council at this time, they're trying to get, you know, ideas out there because it's not business as usual.
Arnold, did you have, during the other committee, do you have a way that we can work together? How would you do that?
We picked up right where we left off the last time. I was receiving, and I'm still receiving emails. I received my last one from House of Whiskey on kind of what other cities are doing to kind of find out that these new businesses that are allowed now to open newly under the governor, you know, how we can maybe help those businesses out so they can maximize their retail, and, you know, because a lot of them are closed down by their capacity, things of that nature. But yeah, let's
Are you opening tonight?
Yeah.
50%. I think the 50 does started yesterday, right? Yeah. Okay, so from this last item, let's go back to the item on the chapter 380. Julian has some good points to make. Some of the research and just even formulating the 380 still has to be done, and I'm doing that based on the recommendations I got from the subcommittee. I heard the chairman say, when I have some sort of finished document together, send it back to you three on the subcommittee so you can look at it. In the meantime, I'm going to look to see how we can integrate the EDAC into what the city council wants us to do, so we can make recommendations to them. So that's three. I don't know if you guys want to make a motion to approve what or okay what I just said, or to move on that.
Are there any comments by anybody? Those that are on video or phone?
The motion is for me to continue working on the 380, and then when I get a first finished draft, to send it to the subcommittee that worked on it, for you to look at it. At the same time, I'm working on how to integrate the EDAC into those recommendations that the city, or those points that the city council asked us to study. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it was just sent right now, so, yeah. I mean,
Is the structure of the document more legal, or is it actually perfect?
It's guidelines. Like, for instance,
it's like the ones we went through, right?
Yeah, we can put like in there like cold storage is a target industry, or we could say a business needs to create at least a $10 million investment before we would consider it for a economic incentive under the 380 agreement, right? Things like that. That's what will be in the document.
I mean, even right now, we can see it. If our target industry was automotive, so I imagine tomorrow it could be public, or it could be entertainment, or it could be tourism, it could be something completely different. So I agree with you, just setting guidelines. I also want to make a motion for you, as well as provide the proposed chapter 380 to the draft committee, and then we guys can go over it, revise it, and bring it to the table in that.
Our next meeting. Yes, sir? Well, should we vote on that resolution? Do I hear a motion? Do I hear a motion? Arturo? Any comments on it? All those in favor?
I didn't hear your motion.
So the motion was just to have the chapter 380, the proposed one that they've been working on for now, presented to the subcommittee, and in the subcommittee, they'll revise it and bring it to the Economic Development Advisory Committee for discussion and further amendment
In our next meeting.
Start screaming, everybody.
So there was a second. Any comments by any of you? Do y'all, all those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Everybody approved? Passes?
Let me just end the meeting. I know we're close to ending it by saying I apologize for the technical difficulties and not being as prepared as I should have been for this meeting. So we'll fix it, and I'll be ready next time.
Can we do all WebEx next time?
We'll see where we're at. I don't want to promise. Yeah.
I have a comment. If you guys can hear me, great. So I just want to loop back around to what the chairman was saying about the agenda items. And in the email exchanges, when we were discussing, setting up for this meeting and requesting the agenda items, I had made a comment. I'm under the opinion that I would appreciate if it's okay with Declo, if he guides I don't know if guide's the way to go, but if he sets the tone for the meetings or at least lets us know what his priorities and his workload is when we're considering agenda items moving forward. Because one of the big ones was just what he discussed in integrating the task force with the EDAC. And so we might all have these ideas of what needs to happen to better, economic development, but at the end of the day, or the beginning of the day, depending on how you look at it, Thecla's the one who has to meet the demands from all sides. And I think that we're a group that can support that and can help guide that based on our perspectives and the districts we represent. But more importantly, we can't keep throwing wrenches when what we need is to use them into actionable items. And so any way that we could support you, Theclo, at least for me, please consider it. And that we need to have more consistency because we only get an hour a month. And a lot of that hour is spent on just informing ourselves of what's going on and not being able to really move forward on actionable items for economic development. But that's just my observation. I just wanted to throw that out there. And so I did it. That was my input in the email exchanges before this meeting in regards to agenda items for this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Alma.
Any comments on that? I mean, I think it's something fair, opinion. Very good. Anything else? If not, do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting? Mr. Dickey, second. Julian, all those in favor? Motion passes. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much.